Hello and welcome back to the Behind the Fic podcast. My name is Fate and you are listening to the Behind the Fic podcast, a podcast that interviews fanfiction writers and asks them about how they got to the string of words that they have on
New
their
challenge.
AO3s and Tumblrs. I'm Fate, as I've said like 3 times now. I have Owl as my co-host today, the wonderful Owl. And
Hello.
take the compliment. And who is my guest today?
It's me. I'm Ashley. I think people mostly follow me on Tumblr by Ashley's Written Words. I also have AO3, and there's a fanfiction.net account floating around somewhere. It's named Firefly Zero, but I'm not really posting there anymore. Should I just jump into like who I am, I guess?
You can talk about who you are, and then you can go into a little bit about the fic, but not too much.
Okay, sure. So I started writing it's been at least like 10 years. It's like so gross to say that.
You're old.
I started I started writing Zelda specifically maybe 2019. So whatever 22 minus 19 is, it's for
That's
that
too much
long.
math. That's too much.
That's what I'm saying. And that's when I posted How to Be a Queen for the first time. I think that was the first story I posted, like first fanfiction for Legend of Zelda.
Just knocks it out of the park first try. This is what we're dealing with, people.
Oh my god.
It was only supposed to be like 3 chapters. And then I just kept writing.
I would have cried if this was just 3 chapters.
Oh gosh.
It was supposed to be a completely different story. I'm like reading it back. It's like so cringy because I know where I was leading with it, and I probably changed the ending like 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be writing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of the fics that we've featured that is still in progress. We're still in the middle of it. We're featuring it, and both me and Owl are like on a cliffhanger. You know, we're just sitting here on the cliff and talking about this thing.
Yeah, well, it should be. I feel like I'm closing up the arc that it's on right now, if you catch my drift. And
Yeah.
then it's going to be on its last leg after that. That's as good as a metaphor as I can think of. So I've been writing it for so long. I feel very nervous to be like wrapping it up. It's the longest work I've ever written. I mean, by far. It's honestly, if I could go back and revise it, I would, and it'd probably be shorter. But it's been so fun to like see how I've grown, and I really appreciate the support I've gotten for it too. It's really made all the difference.
Yeah. Support your content creators. We love it.
I just need a comment.
A comment, a kudos.
That works too.
Yeah. So you're reading. It's pre-recorded, but is there any trigger warnings you want to talk about before I splice it in or it plays for our viewers?
The only thing I can think of is I allude to a possible eating disorder, but it's very subtle, very not in your face. But that's about it.
Okay. So we'll play that.
Chapter 1. Princess Zelda of Hyrule. Princess? Goddesses spare me. Please, what did I do to deserve this? Just a few more spoonfuls and I'll be done. That will be it. Oh, Hylia, end this suffering soon. Princess? Old Grog Guilford sounded concerned. Oh, yes, Lord Guilford? I replied attentively, trying with every ounce of my will not to sound adverse. The man leaned over the table with clasped hands. His eyes gleamed, which forced a wobbly smile onto my lips. Lord Guilford is a minister, and a relatively good friend to father. Don't get me wrong, he's well-meaning, but goddesses in heaven, can he make awful bread pudding? I racked my brain to recall why I had even run into him. How is it? He looked at me eagerly expecting. One look at the old man's face, and I realized why no one has been truthful to him. Telling him what I needed to was like scolding a child for bad artwork. but wouldn't it spare the other poor bastards that would fall victim to it if I spoke up? I cleared my throat, trying to find anywhere else to look at besides the brown puppy dog eyes of old Lord Guilford. Alas, I couldn't escape. "It's delicious," I croaked. "Hylia, forgive me, for I am weak." "Oh, joy! I must share it with the chef for the next festival. Your father comes up with the most fantastic ideas, Princess." I smiled weakly and nodded. Even through the kitchen swinging doors I could hear him monologuing about the winter festival. I stood slowly, too afraid to upset my stomach any more. The dining room was one of the largest in the castle, and here I was alone and possibly poisoned by bread pudding. What a fantastical end that would be. Large silk murals rose from the walls, and I couldn't help but grin. Somewhere in there was a joke about how all my ancestors had passed with an ending fit for legends, and here I am, a princess slain by dessert. Princess Zelda. The irony of it almost hurts. There you are. It's one of my head maids. She looks relieved to see me. Did you forget about your fitting with the seamstress so soon? I feel myself politely smile and my hands grip themselves behind my back. So soon? We both knew that I was here to avoid the appointment entirely. We should be on with it, yes? This has been amongst the many things that have conspired in the recent weeks. As father grows older, he believes more responsibility should fall onto me, whether it be bread pudding taste tests or short discussions about land disputes. It has indeed begun to take a toll. It's been so hectic that I've barely been able to think. Learning who the ministers are, their wives, their political leanings has been one thing. I can deal with simple studying. An entirely different venture is the world of pandering. Forget physical activity. Trying to suck up to people is by far the most exhausting activity I have experienced in my life. Oh, Lord Hicks, how impressive it is to learn how to differentiate milk wine by simply looking at it. Lord, what's your name? How is the mistress you've been having an affair with? And the kids? Can you believe I was taught how to laugh properly a week ago? And here I was, thinking I laughed just fine. Oh no, how wrong I was. This week I was introduced to a woman who told me I sounded like an old rat stuck in a drain pipe. I still haven't recovered from it. A middle-aged woman pulled a measuring tape around my waist. I looked at myself in the mirror as she focused. It's been a while since I was last measured. I stood there in my shift and stared at how her graying hair mixed with the fading blonde. The seamstress made a weird noise and said, "It's been a couple months since I last measured you, girl. If there was a dainty manner to close your eyes from the oncoming onslaught, I believe I achieved it." "I believe so, Mrs. B." "You've widened by a few centimeters, Highness." She shook her head and clicked her tongue in disappointment. My cheeks lit up in embarrassment. Did she have to say that in front of two other maids? I didn't really know what to say. Sorry? It was the bread pudding, I swear. I have a feeling if I told her, the joke wouldn't land well. I looked at the mirror again as she took measurements elsewhere. It wasn't like I was overweight, but I suppose my cheeks did fill in a little. It wasn't awfully noticeable, but being the person that stares at themselves every other hour, it was more apparent now. The day trudged on, and my thoughts moved elsewhere. To say that my head wasn't with my body was an understatement. Too much was going on too fast. Between the pudding and the seamstress's comments, the day was already becoming bigger than I could take on. With the sun now descending, I was able to slip away from preparations to climb the staircase. It was a wonder how it was possible to add centimeters when 4 flights of stairs kept me from skipping out on daily exercise. If I hadn't loved my room so much, I'd invoke my title to move them lower. The hallway was always a cold welcoming. Tapestries of blue and gold draped over gray brick to give a faux sensation of warmth. Shifting at the door indicated that the guard had heard my coming, which made me smile a greeting. It was definitely ignored as he favored the far wall over eye. It wasn't personal, but I grimaced all the same. As with most rules, there was an old book somewhere that dictated that soldiers of any kind were not to make eye contact with royalty. They could kneel or glance skyward, but goddess forbid I'm to be looked at. Just another instance today that made me wonder what the point was. I'm a nosy person, and as a nosy person does, I poked around to figure him out. Being stationed at my door had worked spectacularly to distract me from my pious labor and poked and prodded to get the most information out of him, as short-lived as that adventure was. Link always stood very straight. I had been told that trainees would practice posture by wedging a broomstick between their shoulder blades, which looked rather uncomfortable after a few hours. I regarded him for a moment. It had been a couple years since he was promoted to my guard, yet we've only exchanged a handful of sentences. To my knowledge, there wasn't a law about speaking to royalty, especially when spoken to, so I surmised he simply didn't like talking, or talking to me. It made the relationship as awkward as you can expect. Castle walls aren't as thick as one would think, and I'm positive he's witnessed my many rants to the air. I tried catching my breath before speaking, but the words came through breathless anyway. Link, I spoke. Much to my disappointment, he didn't answer, but the small shift in his step told me he was listening. As I looked up at him, a thought occurred to me, and not for the first time. We could easily have that forbidden princess-knight relationship. It's not like I lock my quarters anyway. With having one of the most top men in high society outside to protect me and all. How scandalous. Oh, Hylia, I need some sleep. Not without a light flush, I responded to his lack of. Could you keep anyone from disturbing me? It's been an awfully long day. Again, he didn't move to say anything, so I continued. Tell them something along the lines of how I'm planning out my solstice speech. Which wasn't a complete lie. I'd at least think about it, and when Link didn't disagree, I assumed it sounded all right. I regarded him again. His royal guard outfit seemed heavy, even on his frame. I bet he wasn't chilly at all. I told myself to shush. I trust your day went well? Again, no response. Oh well, a girl can try. I walked past him and went to the door handle. If another guard comes by, you should tell him to cover your shift tonight. I know it's not the most thrilling job. With that, I went into my quarters and shut the door behind me. I thought we would have built rapport to some degree by now, but I know very little about the man other than that he came from a small village in the southeast. My father trusts him. He talks to his peers often, those thinner than you think castle walls, and that he's a prodigy in his profession. He also tends to fidget with his holster sometimes when I have a one-sided conversation with him. It's quite the resume. I put down whatever journal I was holding for my etiquette courses and try to undo the outer layer of my dress. The laces have a tendency to tangle if I don't focus. The dresser mirror only gives so much visibility. A little war waged in my mind over what I ate for supper, but it didn't matter if I ate more than usual. I was allowed to be stressed, right? I frowned as I shift my focus to the layers of my outer dress, sliding from my shoulders to leave a white shift. The red cushioned chair I collapsed on sat in front of a generous desk. Trinkets and papers flourished along the surface, untidied and unorganized. This is when I realized the fatigue in my legs, and I almost slumped forward. I swear aloud at the relief and fumble through my things to find a small, leather-bound book. A dim conversation muffled in from outside, and all I can make out is Link's deeper voice beside a lighter, more uplifted voice. Probably Andrew. Without the need to eavesdrop, I know she was here to undress me. I beat her to it, of course, but I appreciate Link's attentiveness to what I told him earlier. The thought of holding another conversation, even with a maid I trusted, felt like a great feat. Grasping the metal ink pen with one hand, I wiped off dried ink from the tip with a loose garment. The lid of the ink gave way with a little tugging, and in no time I was flipping through my diary to find a blank page. A deep breath prepared me. Dear Diary. It was cliché. The mouthing as I wrote was more so. What followed was a recap of my day. It took my mind a good bit of training to get started, but the frustrations fueled the flame. The bread pudding, the lying, the seamstress, and my inability to find genuine conversation. The latter concern had naturally bothered me the most since it was a recurring theme through these pages. The books I've read and the interactions I've witnessed were so much different than the life I lived. Even now, I felt a hole in my stomach growing wider. It didn't matter who smiled at me or asked of my day. I doubted who they were referring to. Princess came before Zelda. I've known that for years, but only now was it rearing its ugly head so apparently. I mouth out my words as I write, though that was petering out into a blank gaze. The ink turned blurry in my vision. One night, many years ago, not long after Mother's passing, he told me after hours of drinking that my conception was for the state's sake, and only for the state's sake. I am starting to believe him.
And then it'll play, and then we'll come back. Okay.
And people will be
Um,
swept away by the wonderful words.
yeah, the wonderful words.
Thank you.
So if you're ready, we'll do the Q&A. I have 5 questions. I think they're good questions. Sometimes I think I have good questions, and then I ask them, and I'm like, wait, that's a horrible question. What am I doing? Why am I in charge of this?
Because you're awesome and amazing.
Owl, how many do you have?
I have 7, but I'm probably gonna trash most of them and make them up as I go.
Okay, cool. So my first question, Ashley.
Mhm.
So cool. I think when I first read How to Be a Queen, this was before I started this behind the fig, and before I interacted with you on Tumblr. I would have never imagined that I would be asking you questions. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Like I do not feel like I'm like that. Like I don't know. I felt that way about Spicy
Oh
like
my
a
god.
lot when I started writing. I was like, oh my god, Spicy
Spicy came to
Chestnut
my
put
Discord,
a
and I'm like,
kudos on my story.
hello. Okay. What are some similarities and differences between the characters as they are in Breath of the Wild and the characters as you've written them?
There's a lot of differences. I don't even know where to start because the story was supposed to be pretty stuck to canon when I first started writing it. And then it just wasn't like out of the gate. So I think when I really wanted to pin down something of my version of Zelda, um, and I guess it's like up to the interpreter if that like totally matches, Breath of the Wild Zelda, because that's who I obviously base it off of. Um, and I don't know, it's the whole story is just kind of following this weird version of Zelda growing up and becoming her own woman.
Yeah, I agree. Owl.
That's pretty much it. I
Don't
can't
say that.
really.
No, you answered it. You use so basically you tried or you've stuck to Breath of the Wild canon as much as possible, which I agree with. I just wanted to hear your opinion on that. So, and you
Yeah.
did. So, Owl.
I just want to mention first that I spent all of Sunday and all of Monday burning through this fic.
Hopefully, it wasn't painful.
It
Oh
was
no,
delightful.
it is not. This is not painful. It flies by, and then it ends. It's like, oh, okay.
It was a punch to the gut when I realized that you weren't done
I'm getting there. Almost. I really need to be done with it because there's this chapter that I have written out, and it's been sitting on my laptop for over a year now, and I'm almost to it, but it's so annoying.
Get there.
yet.
No rush, but you'll get there.
I need to. Ready.
Hey, I'm pretty sure this is a question I've asked people before, but what part of Zelda and Link's relationship do you find the most interesting?
Good one.
I don't know. There's like a few different aspects of it that I adore. Like I love it. I mean, you obviously have that kind of reincarnation cycle where it's difficult to put into words. And I think I hint to it plenty in How to Be a Queen. I'm always talking about lore. I love world building and lore, and I try and fit their like past lives into it without being too obnoxious. Because that really I just think it's so romantic, and there's like a tragedy in it that
Right.
I guess other um I guess other stories don't really have, like other fandoms, I guess.
Hmm. I think that's what makes people gravitate towards the Zelda series and the Link is that um there's this destiny thing, but it's also linked with tragedy, no pun intended. So um yeah, so I got an email from my work as I was saying that. I was like, okay, no, it's just a general email. Okay. Yeah, but that totally makes sense.
I also think there's like you can really project yourself onto the characters very easily. At least I see that for a lot of other people. I mean, you
Right.
can make them still like the same character, but like just a different version of it that's more, I don't know, closer to the author. I think that's really cool. It's definitely something different than that I've seen.
Yeah, when you read Zelda fan fiction, you can definitely get a sense of the author's personality, and I think that's really special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Um. Okay, my next question. Zelda in particular has undergone whoa blah, 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 has undergone massive growth over the course of your fic thus far, stepping away from recklessness and into responsibility. What do you feel is the most prominent lesson that she has learned?
Um, oh gosh. I think mostly just learning how to be herself
Hmm.
while still being confined. Because a big part of her character, at least in the beginning, especially as they were, traveling, um, was Zelda finally learning how to be herself
Right.
and how learning how to be herself through other people. Um, I don't know, I feel like that's so special to finally be able to connect with people for the first time, even when I do portray her as older.
Mm.
Um, I think it's a cool dynamic, and I hope I show the tone shift well because I really feel like there's the way she thinks is very different, and it's more. I feel like she understands herself more.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I over the over reading it, you get kind of this. She's growing up a little bit, and she's instead of distinguishing herself from everyone she knows, she's um reacquainting herself and becoming this active figure in other people's lives. And I think it's interesting that you say that she's learning how to be herself because the title is How to Be a Queen. So really, she's learning that to be a good queen is to just become more of herself, which is really really nice message.
Yeah,
Unless you didn't
yeah,
intend that, and then okay. My
yeah. I
English
don't know what
brain is
I
like
intend. Honestly,
analyze,
that's like a
analyze,
great
analyze.
interpretation.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just kind of want to ask a stupid question.
Go for it. We stupid questions.
Have you ever had someone you cared about offer you very bad food?
Um, it's mostly me offering bad food. I'm not gonna like. I'm a big baker, but I don't think what I bake is good because I always stress bake. So I'm like offering. I like to give people stuff like food, and I'll give people like the hardest sourdough bread they've ever had, and they'll
Oh
be
no.
like, "Thank you," and like crunching it's like a rock. And I'm trying. Thank
Gosh,
you at least for
Right.
taking it from me.
Oh.
but like same, I also do a lot of baking. Anyways, I'll try and ask like a better question now.
Oh, that's a
No,
good
no
question.
worries.
No, I was just that was like a question on crack. Anyway, um, did any other work or specific scenes from the game like inspire you for this?
Like all of them. I don't know. No, I guess a big point was just the traveling. I really think when I was setting them off on like Lincoln Zelda this whole escorting a mission around Hyrule was going to make it so they like very cliche literally go all the way to like the desert and back to the castle and then
Mhm.
that was like her transformation. And of course I had to be dramatic about it.
Right.
But that was definitely based on like how expansive Breath of the Wild is.
Mhm.
And I loved Zelda's angst in the game. I was like, that her whole angsty, like this Breath of the Wild Zelda and her issues, her turmoil is so impressionable to me.
Right.
I think that's what a lot of people relate to. And it was a big motivation to start it, because especially in the first few chapters, I go on like little thought monologues, I guess, which
Mhm.
in retrospect I don't really like about my writing, but it's definitely something I wanted to explore at that point.
I see no fault at all with your writing. So you talking about these little like nitpicky things. I'm like, but your writing is
I
perfect.
just I feel like I ramble sometimes in it.
No.
I don't
Rambling,
know.
just rambling in
I
that?
wish I could ramble
Yeah.
more. Like I feel like when I write stuff, I'm not writing like enough description things or like and emotion things that I write. I rewriting and I'm like, see, it can be done.
Well, there's like definitely a certain moderation that I
Mhm.
need.
Right.
Because a lot of what I've noticed when I read it back in my earlier chapters, I've noticed I go on lines of thought that don't really add much to the plot,
Right.
and that's where I have issues with my writing. I have issues tying up a bow, especially
So
when it comes to a
going on
plot.
like relevant tangents,
Yeah.
or like irrelevant tangents. Yeah,
Mhm.
I see. Was it my turn to ask it? No,
I don't
wait.
remember.
I think it was my turn. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask a question. Um, what is your favorite nugget that you've added to Zelda lore?
Oh, the dream scenes are my favorite scenes. I
Those are pretty good.
love writing, because I feel like I have this whole, I guess, headcanon when I'm writing it. The lore, like, gets so big in my head, like, it's hard
Mhm.
for me to explain it. I wrote this whole other, it was years ago that I wrote it. It was maybe, like, 3 chapters, and it was, like, the everything that happened before Skyward Sword.
Mhm.
And I'm obsessed with Skyward Sword because of the lore. And my thing is, like, Hylia and Demise and the original Link, they have to be, like, there's has to be some sort of, like, I guess, spiritual warfare involved, even
Mhm.
if they're, like, quote, unquote, "mortal selves" don't realize it. And that
Right.
intrigues me so much. And, like, with the rambling, I feel like if I don't stop myself, I will make it, like, 5,000 words, and I really have to control myself,
Right.
but, I mean, gets me going.
Yeah. So you would say that your favorite nugget that you've added to Zelda lore is like the dream thing, Zelda
Yeah,
having a connection with Link. And I really like the mystery of those. How the you make it so the audience isn't even quite sure if this is real, if he's really there, if this is a dream, if Link is actually it's kind of like this nebulous, mysterious thing that intrigues the audience. So I like how you do that.
thank you. Yeah, I kinda want it to be like a peek behind the curtain sort of
Yeah,
thing. Um, yeah, I want to give something away.
it's you have the right to not give away spoilers. So yeah,
Should
All
I?
right.
Like, I feel like maybe that's so fun. Maybe it's a spoiler. I don't know, I won't say anything because I think I'll include
okay.
it later.
Let it be behind the curtain then. That's okay.
Then we'll just be more delighted when you reveal it.
Yes.
All right. Um, what are some of your favorite cliches and like stereotypes that you use, or not stereotypes, but like things that you commonly see, tropes maybe, that you use
Um,
throughout the story?
sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah, like, the whole beginning part is, like, an entire trope. Entire trope. It was like the road trip sort of thing. where she was learning how to be herself and like falling in love doing it. That's a totally cliche. And I think I was kind of getting bored in the middle of it. And so I think that's why I decided to take a turn
Mm-hmm.
and doing the whole politics part of it, like the
Right.
last whatever chapters. I don't even know how long it's been going. But yeah, that definitely the road trip thing. I think the whole you know, them purposely being like so dumb just for the sake of them
Yeah.
being dumb so they can, fall into each other's arms very dramatically.
Mm.
I will continue to do that. And I know
Yes,
it's
please.
cliche and I
No,
won't
I love the drama.
apologize.
Do not apologize. I love it. They're so dramatic.
I love it. I'm like, whenever I write those scenes where it's so obvious and it's just so obvious to me and I know it'll be so obvious to other people that there's like if they just communicated better, it would
Right?
be a better situation, but that's no fun.
I feel
So
like that's a
it's
lot of
really
romance fics where it's like, if you just communicate, everything would be fine. But then again, this communication is where the conflict comes from, and then all
exactly.
writing centers around conflict. So,
Yeah, like where I left off right now, I mean, Zelda is convinced that Link is pissed off, that he probably is so pissed off that he might not feel the same way about her at this point, or she's at least like torturing herself about it
right.
and is trying not to think about it with the distractions going on. Um, and then, man, I love the whole separated lovers, and there's like a block there, and
Mm.
they are just stuck in their thoughts about it. I've already
And
done
they
it
they
like
have to
twice.
navigate their own worlds while
Yeah,
still
I think
missing each
it's
other.
a good growing tool,
Right.
at least.
Yeah. Um, was that her question? Okay. I think I never remember if it's my question or not because I'm always like afraid of stepping over other people. So I'm like, is it time for me to
Me.
speak? Am I being annoying?
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's your question.
Okay. What is some advice you would give the emerging writers who are listening to this podcast? Your work is certainly of great caliber and admired both deeply and widely, but you must have once been a fledgling writer yourself at one point.
Oh yeah. I remember I think I posted my first fan fiction at 11 or 12. And I posted it on DVNR.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I paid so much attention to what people thought. Like I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with followers too. That was a big thing for me. Um, and it really ended up burning me out so bad. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I used to love writing. I was like 9 and I was writing like fan fiction and I was like, this is so cool. I want to show people. And it got to the point after that where I just like I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't fun. It felt like work. It felt like and I did the
Mm-hmm.
same thing when I was 14 when I got onto Tumblr and started posting. And I'm sure it's still on my account if you dig far back enough because I started taking requests from people. Because I was like hyper fixated with whatever I was writing about at the time. And people would send in requests for me, like drop something in my inbox and I'd write it. And eventually people would get very um, angry with me if I didn't post in a certain amount of time. So the same thing happened. I started getting burnt out. I noticed that the things I really didn't things I really did like to write wasn't getting as much traction. And it really hurt my ego, I think, because I attached so much to numbers. I
Mm-hmm.
cared so much. That was like where my motivation was at that point. If I got numbers, then I'd write. If I didn't, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped writing after 16. So I didn't write until I was like a sophomore in college, freshman, sophomore, like late freshman year. And That's when I first posted the first chapter of How to Be a Queen.
Mhm.
And I told myself, I promised myself that I would only write for myself.
Right.
And I feel like that was so important to me because I didn't want to be burnt out anymore because I always
Right.
came back to writing. That was always my work. So I think the reason why this fan fiction is so long is because I used it to experiment a lot with like
Mhm.
tropes, as we said, and just different ways of writing, which is why there is such a like subtle tone shift. And also I see myself improving in it. And I
Right.
remember the chapters I posted weren't getting as many notes as other things I posted. And I was like, look, I don't care anymore. And it was so
Mhm.
freeing just
Right.
not to care about what other people thought and just, you know, let yourself write and
Yeah.
explore yourself and all these different things. It's kind of like an ego death, but for a writer
Right.
to let go of that. And it's so euphoric to get the attention, but it's so much more euphoric to appreciate yourself, appreciate your writing, write what you want to read, which is a huge thing for me, and recognize your improvements. It's the feeling is indescribable. I
Mhm.
I could talk so long about it. It's just so important to write for yourself.
Right. I'm so glad I asked that question because that's so important not to get bogged down by numbers, and it's so easy to get bogged down by numbers when we live in a time of sharing our works on social media and getting all these notifications about, okay, this person liked, this person kudos, this person reblogged, this person commented, and you get kind of caught up in all that. But I think all of what you just said is so important for even me to remember, and even probably you to keep in your mind, uh, is that you writing for yourself is gonna make you a more healthy person and also going to make your writing better. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's very, very good. Very good. Okay. I was like, yes,
Yeah, that was a great
I'm
answer.
so happy for like all the writers that are gonna listen to this and like hear that. I'm just like, oh yes, okay. We
Oh,
won
and it's
today.
also okay to reach out to other people. I
Yes.
find that people in this little, fandom, are so welcoming. I've been in communities where they're so toxic over such little
Mhm.
things, but people who like Legend of Zelda are just really chill people. Really
I found
appreciate
that
it.
too. Yeah, this fandom is so nice and so kind and so refreshing.
Yeah,
Um,
I've met so many people through it.
mhm.
So shout out to everyone I know, I guess.
Shout out to every Zelda fan. You
Yeah.
guys are the best. All right, I'll
Okay.
follow up that.
Yeah, absolutely. um, the ring that Zelda has, I appreciate how it keeps getting brought up. Do you
Oh my
perchance
gosh.
mean to be doing that?
I'm sorry?
The ring that's
Oh, the
like,
purity ring?
yeah, the purity ring.
I absolutely need to do that because it's, like, a little bit more of a flare. Uh, I trying to remember, like, the what she told him. Um, it was like what? It was like something that her dad gave her. I think it's just something cute to include, especially since they're, like, separated now and it's, like, a little piece of her. And even though,
Yeah.
like, um, it's, like, something that she wouldn't see as important when it's with her, and now it's so important because she knows that that stupid ring she didn't like is now with someone that she really cares about.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
I
Yeah.
love all the appearances that ring is making.
Yeah.
The
Every
little
time the
side
ring is like,
comments,
"It's the ring! It's the ring!"
Oh, shoot. I didn't know like, I thought that was just, like, a cute little thing. Like, I love, um, little goodbye tokens. There's this, painting that I'm thinking of. It's I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's where like there's a princess on a staircase and she's like saying farewell to a knight on a horse and
Yeah,
she's tying a like a scarf or a handkerchief around his arm.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I guess it's kind of like oh, I like that stuff. I'm glad you guys like it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised people remember it. It's been so long since I've mentioned it.
Well, I mean, I did like binge all of it while writing notes,
Oh,
so
that's true.
I read half of it like before any of this podcast stuff, and then I messaged Ashley and I was like, I don't know where I left off, and I read the other half. And when it came up to the ring part, I was like, I remember the ring. Oh my gosh! So I do remember it.
That
I
makes
did
me so
remember.
happy because I write so many um, minor details. Like even with the lore that I write in there, a lot of the time. Okay, so my issue is I write chapters all in one go, or at least in the beginning I was doing. And I was not planning or writing out any outlines. So whatever you guys have read, those are my notes. So I have to comb through that to find like those little details, like the ring, because that's not written like in a condensed format. And I end up pissing myself off because I'll forget them. And when I do include them, I wonder if people actually remember um like the first time I mentioned it. So that makes me so happy that you guys brought that up.
Yeah. Okay, this is my last question. Um, how did you go about finding a balance between the budding romance between Link and Zelda and the increasingly complex politics of the main conflict?
Um, I hope there's balance. I
There is one! How did you do it?
don't know. I really had this idea. Um, okay, so side note, the original ending to How to Be Queen is actually something I wrote out and posted separately because I have a new one now. And what is it called? And I feel like that gives you an idea of like um I guess my original thought of where I was going with it. So when I got up to I think the where they were um at his house or something, I was like that's when I was starting to get burnt out. And I
Right.
was like, I want to write politics. I've never done that before. And that's kind of like how I was saying I really wanted to experiment with this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of wrote out the old ending because I still really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a turn with him being called out to the front lines or whatever I said, and her having to go back to the castle. And I love writing like I guess manipulation a lot. For some
Mm-hmm.
reason, I wanted to try that out, and I think it reads okay. I'm not really done with that part. Um, maybe you can read into that a little bit. Trials and Tribulations is on Archive of Your Own is the original ending to it.
Yeah,
And
I can link that in the description so people can
yeah, that'd be
read
awesome.
it.
And what was I saying? Oh no.
The original ending and where you took it differently.
Oh yeah.
And
So anyway, I just really wanted to include, a evil Hawkeye because I was reading a really good series of books by Holly Black, and it just had like the best character in it where he was such an asshole, but he was still hot, if that makes sense.
that
Very
makes a lot of sense.
morally gray, I guess. And
I like the
man,
morally gray guys.
morally
I really
gay.
I
Almost
don't
said
know,
that.
but yeah, I don't know. I wanted to try my hand at writing something, even though it's not completely the same. I
Yeah.
don't know. Very long-winded answer. Made sense.
I make sense. I just think you did a really good job with balancing the two. Um and like cuz the romance is still like as the reader, the romance is still a big part in my mind. Like you want them to get together in the end, but at the same time, there's the bigger conflict of okay, Hyrule's got problems, you know. So you've balanced that really well, and yeah, that's
Thank you.
yeah.
I do like a big fear of mine when I did write that transition of where they're separated, like Zelda's in the castle and then, Link's going off doing, whatever generals do. I was really scared that readers were going to get bored without a male lead
Mm-hmm.
because I think I found myself thinking that for other books and, other stories I've read. And I really hope it doesn't come across like that. I hope, the massive amounts of dialogue that I write, and I do enjoy writing it, are just as entertaining to an audience.
So it definitely is entertaining, and I think shifting the main focus to Zelda, which you've done multiple times now in Stick, was you did it really well, and it's still engaging for the reader. So, Owl, do you have another question?
Oh gosh, no, not really. I can just like it just made me so happy reading it. Like a fair portion of my notes are just like, oh gosh, this is making me giddy.
I am so surprised you got through all of that because it's so long.
So
Like, I
good
feel like
though.
I
It
would
made
have
me
issues.
so happy.
Thank you for saying that. Like, because when I read back my chapters, I have to literally like assign myself different portions of them for several days, and sometimes it takes me longer than that because I know what's going to happen. But damn, it's really long. There's so many chapters. I'm so sorry. Am I allowed to curse?
Um, you are not. Why would I say you were? I don't know why. In my mind, I was like, oh, on that episode.
Because you
Like I
use the
said,
beep.
I
Was
might
it?
have cursed before.
Did you curse? I don't know. I don't know why. I remember one of the episodes there was gonna be a curse in the reading, so I was like, okay, that. Okay. Anyway, I'll use the beep. So if you need to, you can.
I might have already, but I will refrain so you don't have to edit
Yeah.
them.
Okay. I don't remember why. Why did I ever think that? Anyway, keep going. Keep going. What am I thinking about? Okay. But yeah, I don't remember what you were talking about.
Do any of us remember what we were talking about?
It's
Anyway,
probably in the middle of some
I have
interviewing.
quotes right out of your writing, just in my notes.
What was that?
I quoted your writing in my notes because I'm just like, this is an important piece of text that you should just kind of learn forever.
lots of good lines.
Thank you. There's like this one line that I don't think I've ever loved something that I've written more. And you can bring it up really quick and read it if you guys don't mind.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
yeah, sure. Whatever you want. This is your time to shine. This is technically your self promo section. So, read that excerpt or talk about anything that's coming up or whatever you want.
There's this one sentence. It's like one sentence. It's not even that full. But it's in the muscle memory chapter. It's the one I sent you, Fate.
Right, right.
Okay. So it's when they're making out. And it's like I said, if this is a childish infatuation I decided, then it burns brighter than any I have for the strength that true adoration is capable of. And I read back that and I'm like, I didn't write that.
Yeah, I know. I love that one.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Honestly,
Yes.
talking about writing it's so weird because I don't talk about it with like anyone else in real life. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well,
Woo!
I'm glad to have had you on. So you are you're still working on how to be a queen. So everyone keep your eyes out for that. I'm gonna put that in the description. Is there anything else you're working on that you'd like to promote?
Oh gosh, I'm probably have like 3 unfinished stories out there. Not really. You
Okay.
can like look and see, but
Okay. Then I'll just link how to be a queen in your Tumblr and all that. Um, is there anything else you'd like to say to the viewers before we uh end off?
you guys are to building up this story. But really, really thankful for the people who have read it, because it is like my little story child. Like this is like the first fic I posted after a few years, so it's very near and dear to me, even as much as I write on it. So I really appreciate, people who've left comments, kudos, or
Yeah.
messaged me separately about it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on. What is next week? Hold on. Next week we're gonna have right. Uh next
Oh.
week next week is we're gonna be covering In Calamity's Grasp, which is the collab fic between me, Bella, and Pastels, so it's gonna be a bit chaotic. So yeah, that's why I say I'm like, oh yeah, right. I have to do
You
a
have
reading.
responsibility.
I know. Okay. But until then, we're gonna say goodbye, and a big thank you to Ashley for coming and being awesome. And yeah, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.